Hi everyone, so in this video we're going to recap a bit what we did in the previous classes. So we're going to talk about substances and how substances are broken down into different categories. So the first category of substances is an atom. So an atom is the smallest indivisible particle. We represent an atom using a circle, and there is 118 different types of atoms, and they are different in size and they are different in mass. And all these different atoms, they are actually called elements, right? An element is a substance that cannot be divided into any simpler substance. So this is the definition of element. Cannot be further divided into any simpler substance. And all the elements, they are found in the periodic table, and there is 118 different types of elements, and each one has a name and each one has a symbol, and the symbol should always start with a capital letter. If there is two letters, the first one will be capital, the second one will be a small letter. Then we have elements that can be metals, elements can be non-metals, or they can be semi-metals or metalloids. So all the elements can be found in the periodic table. So this is the periodic table where you have the name of all the 118 elements displayed and their symbols. And on that periodic table, you see the red staircase line over here. So that staircase line separates the metals and the non-metals. Everything which is here is the metals, and everything which is in blue is the non-metals. And on top of the line and at the bottom of the line, you have the metalloids, the semi-metals. All right. And we're going to use a circle to represent each of these elements. So you are going to have 118 different types of circles and 118 different types of masses for these elements. So I've chosen to show hydrogen element, nitrogen element, and potassium element as atoms here. So they are atoms, just shown by a circle. Now these elements, sometimes they combine with themselves. So you can have a nitrogen combining with a nitrogen, or a hydrogen combining with a hydrogen. This is what you have, a hydrogen molecule. So when you have atoms of the same type that combine together chemically, which means that they react with each other. So a hydrogen will react with another hydrogen to form a hydrogen molecule. During a reaction, you have heat, which is going to be either absorbed or produced. So either you have temperature that goes up or temperature that goes down, and you have a substance which is created. So hydrogen molecule produced, let's say, in a reaction, and a molecule is two or more atoms chemically combined. So these are a few examples of molecules made from elements. So hydrogen molecule, oxygen molecule, O2, ozone molecule, O3. So these are a few examples of elements that exist as molecules. But molecules can also be formed if there is different types of atoms that combine together. For example, water, there is hydrogen and oxygen that combine together to form water, and this is called a formula, H2O. This means that there is two H and one O. This is what is shown in that diagram. 2H, 1H, 2H, 2H and 1O. Methane is CH4. There is one C and 4H. That's why it's CH4. Carbon monoxide, there is one C and one O. This is why it's CO. And carbon dioxide, there is one C and two O. This is why it's CO2. So this is the formula. Okay, now when they are combining together here, there is a reaction that takes place, and these are called compounds, all these are called compounds if there is two or more different types of atoms that are combined chemically together. So here we have two different, here you have two different, here two are different, two different as well. You can have three different atoms combined together. Let me show you an example. So here I have CH3Cl, and this is the molecule. So here you can see there is 1, 2, 3 types of atoms combined together chemically. When I'm saying types of atoms here, I'm counting the colors. I'm looking at the colors. You can also look at the size, all the type of atoms combined. Okay? So these are compounds. Now a mixture, on the other hand, a mixture has two or more substances physically combined. Here you have to pay attention. Physically combined and chemically combined are very different. Chemically combined means there is a reaction that takes place. For example, when you're burning something, there's a fire. This is a chemical reaction. Physical reaction, there is no heat involved. So just like you're taking salt, you add to water, it's just salty water. There is no reaction that takes place in there. So physical combination means there is no reaction. When we're going to show a mixture, there won't be the particles, the atoms will not be glued together. You see here, that's a kind of a glue holding them together. So this is a bond. Each of these glued spots, this is a bond. It's a chemical bond. But when you have a mixture, let me show you an example of a mixture. There is no chemical bonds between the particles. The particles are just together. They are just combined together. You can separate them if you do the right technique, but they are not glued together. Here, there is no bond between them. There is no chemical bonds between them. So they can be separated. There is no chemical reaction in the formation of a mixture, and the substances combined in any amounts, which means that if you're doing salty water, you can add any amount of salt to any amount of water. You'll still end up with salty water. But let's say you're making carbon monoxide, CO, you need the correct amount of carbon and the correct amount of oxygen. If you're making carbon dioxide, you need the correct amount of carbon and the correct amount of oxygen. You need 1 carbon and you need 2 oxygen to make 1 molecule of carbon dioxide. But if you're making salty water, whatever the amount of water you have, whatever the amount of salt you have, you'll still be able to make salty water. So this is one example of a mixture that consists of atoms. So you see the red one is one kind of atom and the blue one is another kind of atom. So it's a mixture of atoms. The atoms are together, but they are not chemically combined. They're just physically together. This one here, you have a mixture of atoms. So the blue one is an atom, so it's alone. And the red one here is a molecule, but it is a molecule of an element. So molecule, 2 or more atoms combined together, but since they are of the same type, it's a molecule of an element. So here you have a molecule of an element. So here this box contains a mixture of atoms and molecule of an element. So atoms of an element, blue one, and molecules of an element, the red one. Okay, and this is just to show you the different elements in there, the different substances in there. The third example here, you have this one over here. So these 3 here, these are compounds because they consist of 2 or more, so in this case 2 different types of elements combined together. So these are compounds, and the yellow ones, they are elements. So you have a mixture of molecule of element and molecules of a compound. So they are all molecules over here, but here you have a molecule of a compound, here you have a molecule of an element. Here, these ones are not molecules, they are just atoms. So this is why we say mixture of atoms, and the red one are molecules. And the last example that we'll see is a mixture of compounds. So this one is a compound, and this one is the second compound. So you have the compounds together physically, so there is no bonds between the compounds, right? So here, this is how the molecules would look in salt water. This could represent salt and this could represent water. So it's just mixed together. There is no chemical reaction that takes place. So this is the summary of whatever we have already done in the topic. So thank you all. You are going to work the questions in the attached task. Thank you. Bye-bye.